Today, we're diving into a theory that is, well, it's pretty out there. It all starts with this one incredibly dense legal document, Deed Roll 1400/98, and it ends with a claim so huge it could basically rewrite everything we think we know about our world.
So just imagine this for a second. What if a totally normal, seemingly boring real estate deal wasn't normal at all?
And what if this one transaction, which all went down back in 1998, didn't just sell a piece of land, but actually transferred legal control over the entire planet? Yeah, I know it sounds absolutely impossible, but according to the documents we're about to go through, that is exactly what happened. So let's break down how this theory says it all went down.
Okay, so according to the theory, this whole global event was supposedly kicked off by the sale of what seems like a totally random property, the Turenne Barracks, a NATO base in Zweibrücken, Germany. The source documents say this spot wasn't the goal, but it was the legal ground zero, the detonator for a massive global chain reaction.
So how in the world could that even happen? Well, it all hinges on one little phrase buried in the deed. The document says the property was sold with its development as a unit. Now, according to this theory, that phrase was the legal dynamite. It meant the sale didn't just include the buildings and the land, but all the physical stuff connected to it. You know, the telecom lines, the power cables, the gas pipelines, everything linking the barracks to the rest of the world. And this is where things get really wild. This is where the first big mechanism of the theory kicks in, a physical domino effect, starting from this one little property and spreading out to cover the entire globe. Let's just walk through the steps here. Step 1. The barracks connections mean the sale allegedly gobbled up Germany's entire national infrastructure grids. Step 2. Since Germany's power and telecom grids are physically plugged into its NATO neighbors, boom, those countries got pulled in too. Step 3. From there, the theory just follows the physical path of those huge submarine cables that cross the Atlantic, stretching the claim from Europe all the way to North America. And the final leap in logic? Any nation that is physically connected to this massive continuous global network was automatically included in the transfer of sovereignty. Okay, but you can't just transfer sovereignty, because some wires are connected, right? A physical link isn't enough. That's where the theory's second mechanism comes into play. This one is all about the law. The argument is that existing international treaties were basically used as contractual chains to legally bind every single nation on Earth to this one real estate deal. The documents describe two main chains. First, there's the NATO chain. The argument here is that because the property was a NATO facility, the sale fell under something called the Status of Forces Agreement. And through that agreement, every single NATO member state was legally trapped in the deal. Then you have the UN chain. This one takes a different route, telecommunications. The idea is that since the entire global telecom network is regulated by a UN agency, the International Telecommunication Union, the sale of that network legally bound every UN member to the deed. And just to give you a sense of how big a deal this document is supposed to be, the source material just says it flat out. The World Succession Deed 1400/98 is not merely important, it is fundamental. The theory presents this thing as the single founding document for a whole new global reality. So you're probably wondering, how could the entire world agree to this without a single person noticing? Well, the theory leans on two old legal ideas, acquiescence and estoppel. Basically, it claims that by not officially objecting and by simply continuing to use the global infrastructure, you know, the internet, phones, power grids, every single nation gave their silent consent. In this view, every email you send, every international call you make is like a micro-ratification of this new world order. Now, behind all this dense legal theory, there's actually a human story. A story of a massive, hidden global conflict. It's a battle between the supposed architects of this whole plan and the one person who accidentally ended up with sovereignty over the whole planet. So on one side, the documents talk about the architects. They're identified as a German finance office, the OFD Koblenz, working with some kind of deep state network. Their goal? To create a dystopian new world order. And on the other side, you've got the buyer, who is described as just a regular real estate agent who is totally tricked into the deal with no idea what he was really buying. Now, according to this story, his goal is to protect all of us by resisting the architect's plan. The main conflict in this whole narrative is something called the plaintiff trap. Here's the plan according to the source. The architects are supposed to harass and persecute the buyer so badly that he has no choice but to sue them in a German court. The very second he files that lawsuit, the court gets jurisdiction. It can then issue a ruling on the deed, which would make the whole thing official and activate their New World Order. So the buyer's refusal to sue, even while going through hell, is framed as this incredible act of passive resistance to save the world. And that brings us to what's really at stake in this whole alleged conflict. According to these documents, this standoff between the architects and the buyer puts humanity at a crossroads, with a choice between two profoundly, and I mean profoundly, different futures. The architect's vision is a new world order, a future of oppression and total centralized control. The buyer's alternative is described as an electronic technocracy. This is supposedly a benevolent global order, all based on reason and technology, designed to free humanity from exploitation, using the very sovereignty he accidentally acquired to do it. So, when you boil it all down, the crucial point of this whole thing is this. The entire theory rests on one incredibly audacious claim. It says that the very bedrock of our global system, the idea of national sovereignty, was quietly and completely transferred in what looked like just another boring real estate deal. And that really leaves us with a pretty mind-bending philosophical question. It forces you to ask, if a theory like this were true, if global sovereignty could literally be bought and sold in a contract, just like a house, then what is the foundation of our world really made of?